All right, see if you recognize this. Oh,
It's always greener in somebody else's field. You dream about going up there, but that is a big mistake. Just look at the world around you, right here on the ocean floor. Such wonderful things around you.
all right. What is that song from? You know it. You've seen it. That's Little Mermaid. Amazing show all about what life is like down the ocean. So we're going to talk a little bit about the ocean here and in terms of aquaculture. So I don't know about you, but all these foods right here, extra delicious. We love our poke bowls, sushi. I'm kind of embarrassed I didn't eat sushi until I was, I think, 23 years old when I first moved here. And then probably the number one Southern California, Long Beach, LA classic, the fish taco. Oh man, I definitely never had fish tacos until I came down here. But we love fish here in Southern California, in Long Beach. But even though we're right next to the ocean, almost none of this fish comes from anywhere out here in the ocean. Most of it is farmed thousands of miles away in big aquatic feedlots, which we kind of understand with cows, pigs, and chickens. We understand they're in feedlots, but for some reason we think, oh, fisherman goes out in a boat, puts a net in, or they have a pole, and they get the fish. That's not where the majority comes from. So welcome to aquaculture, a very fast growing segment of the food industry. And the reason is there are just more people on Earth and we need to feed more people. And it's just predicted that more fish are going to be needed, particularly since we've fished or eliminated or decimated a lot of the wild stocks of fish around the world. We're going to need help with aquaculture, hopefully to fill that gap. Okay. Now let's look more specifically aquaculture. The reason why it's used, it's really efficient. You can get a lot of protein. Let me try to slow down. A lot of protein in a relatively short amount of time in a small amount of space. You don't need a whole lot of water. You don't need some huge thousands of acres, thousands of square miles of open water. And since you're doing it really close, you don't have to drive a boat all over halfway across the world. You don't need a lot of fuel to do it. So it can be more efficient. Okay. So basically aquaculture, write this down, is controlled raising of not just fish, but shellfish, particularly shrimp, mussels, and aquatic plants like seaweed. I don't know about you, I really like those little packets of seaweed. You know, they come in those little plastic boxes and you open up. Pretty good. I was a little like first ate those like, huh? But then I kept eating them. Aquatic plants. Okay, so the controlled raising of these food items. Okay, and they can be in ponds, cages that they just float out in the lake or in the open ocean. Something called raceways or recirculating tanks. So it does require some equipment depending on what kind of aquaculture you're doing, but typically it's a pretty efficient way to grow lots of fish soon. Recirculating tanks. Okay. So we could say fish farming, but we need to understand that it's not just about fish, right? We eat more from the ocean other than fish. So here we go back to the year 2000. The majority of the fish is wild caught. Here the term is capture fisheries. 26% farmed. But as you can see, wild caught has generally stayed pretty steady, while the share of farmed has, doubled. Yeah, in this chart, at least, 2023, which is pretty current. There's twice since 2000. Wow. 23 years worth of data. That's really good. The last 25 years, it's about doubled the amount of fish farming that's being done. Okay, so let's look at the example right here. These are freshwater cages, where we have these cages placed. You can see them just floating in there. They have nets going down. The fish are contained within. They're fed. The waste kind of go through the netting, and then the fish are harvested at a certain length of time. And it's interesting, these are in Chile. Chile has a bunch of freshwater lakes and saltwater inlets where they do a lot of fish farming. And might surprise you to think, even though they make tons of this stuff, fish isn't as big of a food item in many parts of South America. But it is, like in Los Angeles. So a lot of our fish comes from the west coast of South America, Chile. So if you're eating fish, there's a good chance it's from Chile. This right here on the top, this is called a raceway. Yeah, I was like, what's a raceway? Well, this is what it is. A long concrete box where they grow, where they raise fish, and it could be mussels in there as well. And the one below, this is a good example of a recirculating tank. Recirculating tank. So the water's oxygenated, the wastes are pulled out, filtered, fresh water's put in, and they grow them right there in the tank. These would be outdoor freshwater ponds. I believe this is the Philippines. A lot of fish farming done in the Philippines. In Philippines, a lot of their aquaculture involves growing seaweed, tilapia, which you probably heard of, shrimp, which you definitely heard of, oysters and mussels. Going back to Chile back here, they grow a lot of Atlantic salmon, coho salmon, rainbow trout, as well as mollusks. So anyway, it's interesting to see where they grow, what they grow. Oh, in here, I just had to include this. This is Lake Victoria, one of the African Great Lakes that grows in that occupies part of the Great Rift Valley. Lake Victoria, I believe that's the biggest lake in Africa. It borders many countries, but this right here is Uganda. Okay, which is also the headwaters of the Nile, and most likely they're farming tilapia. That they have a variety there that they grow and sell. And kind of like Chile and South America, not the biggest food source in Africa, but they export it around the world. So one of the downsides is a lot of waste are produced in these aquaculture nets, and this can contaminate the water around it. You have all those fish. Just look right here. All these fish, the waste can just get a better color. The waste just oozes out, and if you have too much and not enough circulation, it can really damage the areas around these fish farms. So it's got to be carefully. Now, normally, within reason, nature can handle a certain amount of waste. Okay, so it's just a factor of not letting, maybe instead of 10, maybe 5 So just regulations need to be adhered to in order to keep things, under control. So issues that can happen. These nets are not perfect, right? You can always have them escape, and then they can breed with wild species, and that can affect the dynamics of the populations of the wild fish and be detrimental. And when you're growing so many fish in high density, it can lead to a lot more diseases. And then those diseases not only kill the farmed fish, but they can kill off the wild fish. So it's a tricky balance. Right here would be a Norwegian farmed salmon. I don't know if this is probably a farmed one, but this is an example of a disease they can pick up. This is an example of winter sores, they're called. And they look like sores to me. So they have to really watch and maintain their stocks so this doesn't spread through. And if this gets out, it can affect the other salmon in the region. So here's more of these impacts. Whatever you're feeding them, the chemicals, the drugs. One thing we always like, or that people like to use with livestock, is antibiotics. We know they can have a toll on the ecosystem. And all the things they're feeding them, the fish, they'll take meat from other fish and feed them to these fish, so they're kind of eating fish meal, other fish, which that has an impact on the environment. And all the oils from the leftover food and all the proteins from the leftover food creates a pollution right here. And let's go down below. We mentioned before, escape fish. Oh, here's a hole they got out. They can spread disease. They can breed. They can cause all sorts of havoc. We talked about the waste, eutrophication. Okay, definitely that word is going to be on the test for sure. Eutrophication. That means too many nutrients in the water. And that makes algae grow. Oh, just a second. And you don't want algae in your water. It makes it look nasty. You can't see it. Then it dies, and then the oxygen levels plummet. So there we go. Too many nutrients. Algae grows. Oxygen decreases. Ooh, oxygen levels, which is terrible for fish. And then it could attract predators that then affect the local ecosystem. You're a wild fish. Now you're sitting around this giant thing that's attracting fish that might eat you. Now you get eaten. So, but positive thing we can see here, it can be a job creator, right? Everything we talk about, environmental science and how it impacts the world, the economics is a big factor. Economics is one reason why we have such a problem with global warming. We can't figure out the economics. We just do the right thing, which we've done before. We've been shown the ability to do that. Change our economics in a way that makes green energy more practical, cheaper. We can fix it. We just have to make that decision. So, let's move on. Oh, for the suggested skill. So, we always remember, more than half of the seafood you've ever eaten never saw the open ocean. Wasn't swimming around, wasn't out there. Oh, yeah, I'm out going the Coral Nemo down with the Little Mermaid. It was most likely grown in a pen somewhere. So, given that we need to keep that food source around, how can we make aquaculture work so that it allows us to get food for the 8-9 billion people we're going to need before too long, but yet not wreck the environment? So here's a nice graph. We saw before that wild caught fish is plummeting. But let's just take you back a little time. This kind of harkens what we talked about earlier. There was this huge increase in fishing after World War II, where so many countries really ramped up their fishing fleets right after World War II. They needed to feed their population. That was the quickest, easiest way to do it. And then there's a lot of economic turmoil in the 1970s with energy and other sorts of, you can only maintain that growth for so long. Kind of collapsed until the mid 70s and then started to grow. But then by the 90s, it's kind of stayed flat or decreased. But we see starting around 1990 a pretty rapid increase in aquaculture farmed. So this can be a good way. It can be to provide food for a growing population, but there's things we need to really just write these down. Like we mentioned before, highly efficient protein production requires a small area of land or water to do it. So a lot of bang for your buck. We get to use less fuels, which is great because, we can keep our CO2 levels down. Okay. Going kind of back, we can, preserve wild stocks this way by, not having to tear up the whole ocean, right? Remember, we know where the fish are. We have the technology. And fish protein is great protein, so this is high nutritional value. There's a reason why we eat. It's terrible. Reason why we eat fish. It's good for us. The oils are good for our health, and you got a good protein source, easy to digest. Okay. I already kind of wrote that. So release pressure on wild stock. And predictable year-round, we kind of know. Remember, in the wild, there are seasonal fluctuations. So this can make it more consistent. Consistent food is something that we really like to strive for. But wastewater contamination, we're creating, so we just got to be careful with how much we grow in a small area. We can have diseases spread, antibiotics, escape fish. They can breed wild and just do unknown things. I'm not sure if there's cases of that happening. There are cases where the wastewater's gotten out of control and it caused eutrophication. I'm not sure if there's been escaped fish that have interbreeded and caused documented issues. Habitat destruction. So in some areas of the world, when they do shrimp farming, they destroy wetlands. And that is really a bad thing. We really need wetlands. Typically, there are these things called mangrove forests. And you find them a lot in Southeast Asia and on the Gulf Coast, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, parts of Texas, where these just forests that kind of run right into the ocean. And it's a really great place for fish to nurture their young. It's good for cleaning wastewater, natural processing of wastewater for us. It's great at reducing the strength of hurricanes and storms. So, again, it's all about how we implement these ideas. If we do it the right way, it can really help us. We just have to have the laws and regulations to make that work. So go ahead and enjoy your poke bowl or your fish tacos.